motivation, positivity, encouragement, and I know where to get it. Let's rise. How do? Yeah, I got to get that out. Think about the tough times you've been through in the past. And at that moment, you didn't think you was going to make it, and you made it. All right, now you know what?
We don't need my answer. Okay, Lesette.
No, I want your answer. Go on, tell your answer, please.
See, you know what?
I'm trying to put you out. I ain't trying to put you out. So you know what we did to him? We went to doggy daycare. Yes. Yes, we took him to doggy daycare, so maybe they can teach him some manners that maybe we can't teach him. And just remember that, you know what? You are directing your life within yourself. So whatever you want your life to be, whatever you do today is going to decide your future for tomorrow. So make sure you direct it carefully, all right? Come on, rise. Let's go higher, higher. When you enjoy something that you really enjoy, that you enjoy what you really enjoy, but you enjoy what you really do.
What did you just say? That messed me up.
Messed me up too.
I was waiting for the hair to go all over the place when you said that, but I think you got through it.
But
no, she did it anyway.
Howdy, y'all. I hope you guys are doing great out there. Welcome to Rise with Lesette. I'm telling you, we have a great show for y'all out there. And we just want you to know today that God loves you and that you're going to make it through whatever you're going through. You're going to make it through. Our guest today is Garry, I say Goldwater Jones, because sometimes he goes by Goldwater. But we have Garry Jones on the show, and I'm telling you, he's a pretty awesome individual. He's awesome, and I mean, he's just Lord.
The way you said that name, I was like, wait, we got a boxer on? The way you said it, Garry Goldwater Jones, I was like, oh, we're interviewing a boxer today?
Yeah, we sure do.
Well, he boxes for justice, right?
He boxes for justice. It's all about advocating for justice for yourself. So I want you to take the time, those that are watching this live, take the time to go and ask a neighbor and a friend to please come on and tune in today. Ask your questions and also give your comments. Don't forget to subscribe to Kiani Productions so you can get all the updates, all right?
See, Lesette, this is where we get in trouble.
Okay.
You're too old school. Stop telling people to go knock on the door and ask the neighbor. You're getting people cursed out. Why are you banging on my door at 11 a.m. talking about go watch some YouTube channel? If you don't get on my porch.
They'll probably be getting their gun out. What you doing out there? What are you trying to do? I pow! We're gonna shot you. No, I'm just
we don't want. I just pictured that when you said go knock on your neighbor's door, and I said nobody better come knock on my door talking about watch this YouTube channel.
I know that's right. I know that is right.
I love it. How have you been though? It's been about 3 weeks since the last episode.
It's been a while, Keone. I've been missing all you guys. I've been missing y'all, all the staff. Y'all do such a wonderful job. But I had to do a little surgery, and I'm telling you, I was like a little wimp. You should ask my husband because, they pulled out this long needle about that long. And I said, no, and they didn't even numb it before they put the shot in there. I'm telling you. And when they gave me the shot, I cried like a little baby. I said, y'all are mean. Y'all mean.
Oh my gosh.
I really did do that. I was embarrassed.
I know.
I was so embarrassed because when I walked out of the office, everybody was looking at me like, oh my God, that was her. I said, they heard me back there whimpering and crying and stuff. I said, what y'all looking at? What you looking at? No,
because you don't do nothing quiet. So We know you was back there hollering. We can hear it in the intro. That speaking of intro, it's always funny. I can watch it a million times. Every time I see that part at the end where you're like, what you like to do, what you do when you're doing, I was like, that's set right there. I have no idea what you just said, but it's always funny. It's always funny. And you have another surgery coming up. So of course, we wish you a successful anytime someone's getting surgery. Uh, we wish you for a successful surgery. What was your motivation for having our guest on today?
Well, I've known Gary for a long time. As a matter of fact, we supposed to be cousins. Ain't we cousins, Gary?
Yes,
They,
we are.
We supposed to be
Yes, we
cousins.
are.
We are cousins, so to say.
Now we
And
cousins for real.
for real. And his wife, his lovely wife, Vicky, I'm telling you, she is such a role model for me. And I really admire her. And so we worked on some projects together. And and me and Gary, I just for one thing, I just love his doll. He's got a doll he's going to show you. I'm crazy about the little doll. When he comes on the set, you'll be able to see it. But I'm crazy about that little doll because I just think he's cute because he's an advocate for justice, and that's something that we need in the day and time that we're living in. We need someone to advocate for justice, but we also need to advocate for ourselves. All right, don't you forget that. All right, but we're going to talk about a lot of great
yeah.
things. As we get started,
Mm,
because he's such a great person. He's an author of so many
nice.
books, and y'all let you do the
Well,
bio.
before we bring him on, I'm just letting you know two things. Clarence put in the chat, she screamed like a little kid.
I
So
did, I did. It was
there you go.
embarrassing.
And I just want you to know I'm gonna clip the sound where you said I'm crazy, but I'm gonna leave out the part where you says about the doll, and I'm just gonna keep the sound that says I'm crazy. So
Okay,
I'm gonna use
okay.
that against you.
Crazy, crazy for feeling so
Oh my
lonely.
gosh.
Okay,
But
never mind.
further ado, I literally don't unlike other shows, I literally don't like littering you with the long list of resume speak for a person. I like them to come on and tell you about themselves. And so let's bring on our guest, Garry Jones.
Hi, Gary. How you doing?
Hello, how you doing?
How are you? It's so good to have you on this Rise with Lesette this morning. I'm telling you, it's such a pleasure. I've been trying to get you here for a while, so I'm glad we got you here today. You know what? So how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm really doing great. I was up all night trying to move furniture to try to get the right lighting because I'm just by myself now. So normally I usually have my wife taking care of all that stuff, but I had to do it myself this morning.
Yeah, because that's what Vicky does. But you're doing a great job. I mean, you look great. And I want you to introduce yourself to this wonderful audience, okay?
Okay, my name is Garry Jones. I was born and raised in Kinston, North Carolina, Lenore County. I went to Lenore County Public Schools and I graduated from Kinston High School in 1982. I went on to North Carolina Central University and graduated in 1986 with a criminal justice degree. And my career started in 1987 with the Department of Corrections in Washington, D.C. I moved back to North Carolina and started working at a Triangle Correction Center, um, Wake Correction Institution, Goldsboro Correction Institution. Then I started working with the Federal Bureau of Prison. They had a camp at Seymour Johnson Air Force Base, and I was a lieutenant. Then I got promoted to a senior lieutenant in Tallahassee, Florida, and that's about it.
Wow. I mean, that's amazing how you actually advocate for justice. What is it what is it that encouraged you to be an advocate for justice?
I think I talked to some of my friends. When they noticed that I was going around speaking about criminal justice reform, one guy in particular, he's deceased now. He said, "You've been doing that all your life." I said, "I don't understand." He said, "You were doing that on the football field. You're doing track." And, I didn't realize it. I guess it was just natural. I just naturally do it. But getting back to how I came up with the name Advocate for Justice, in 1995, I was promoted to a senior lieutenant in Tallahassee, Florida. 3 months later, I was fighting in Iraq. I, I, I arrived at the institution July 16, 1995, and I think October 18th, 1995, I was fighting in a full-fledged riot.
Ooh.
And the reason the inmates were rioting, I think President Clinton was in the White House at the time. I think Janet Reno was the Attorney General at the time. And they have this law when it came to crack cocaine and powder cocaine. And what it was, Congress decided to create this United States Senate Commission to go out and study and see whether or not this law was biased towards African Americans. With the vote 4-3, they all voted yes. So at a particular time, the sentencing guideline was, let me give you an example. The sentencing guideline was 100-to-1 ratio, meaning that whatever you got for crack, you supposed to, originally whatever you got for crack, you supposed to get for powder cocaine. But it didn't happen. But when I talk about the 100-to-1 ratio, meaning that if you have 5 grams of crack cocaine, the street value is $500, and you have 500 grams of powder cocaine, and the street value is 50,000. Then it's not fair. And everyone that was getting sentenced, I say like 87% of the inmates that were getting sentenced was African Americans. So after the United States Senate Commission voted 4-3, saying that law is biased, President Clinton stated, okay, what we would do, we'll make that ratio 1-to-1. Whatever we get for crack, we get for powder cocaine. And Janet Reno decided, well, we need to build more drug treatment centers because a lot of people that were getting incarcerated were sick. They didn't need to be in prison. They needed a drug treatment center. And that didn't happen. President Clinton promised to change the law. Congress promised to change the law. Inmates were getting excited because a lot of them were getting ready to get out. And at the last minute, Congress rejected and said, okay, we're not going to change the law. And make a long story short, that's when a lot of prisons start going up in smoke. What I mean by that, they were burning the prison, inmates were rioting. It was a full-fledged riot.
Wow.
One of the
All
things,
because of racial bias.
yes, and for those of you who are not understanding what he's saying is, cocaine is, even though all these drugs are bad for you, cocaine was seen as more of a recreational drug that was used by more people than just people who look like us. And we know the crack epidemic was mostly in the ethnic communities, whether it was black or Hispanic, because that's where it was pushed the most. So you don't want those two drugs having the same criminality effect because of the demographic who was under that demographic. I mean, crack cocaine had um, more penalties than heroin, meth, any other type of drug that wasn't seen as a drug that was used by ethnic groups. One of the things I wanted to ask you before we got to your advocacy, when you were going down your list of what you did as a federal prisons and a corrections officer, is on Keona Productions. Pedro Lugo does this show called On the Count, where he interviews inmates, guards, wardens. He was a federal prison correction officer and counselor for 27 years. And one of the things that a lot of people say when they get on here, especially the correction officers, is you're under this belief that everyone in prison deserves to be in prison. And a lot of them said when they started working in prison, they did not understand how many people were in prison who didn't need to be in prison. Like, it was a shock to them,
Wow.
you know? So getting these rules changed are very important because we're seeing people, you'll see someone on, back before marijuana was legal in a lot of states, you'd see someone get more time for having marijuana than someone who committed murder in the same jail.
Correct.
That's a shame.
And that's insane.
Correct.
Any logical thinking person would be like, that doesn't sound right.
It isn't right. It's terrible. That's terrible. What are you advocating to do about it, Gary?
Well, my journey started right after the riots. It appeared that it wasn't going to change the law to make it fair, and a lot of people could be spending the rest of their lives in prison for a non-violent offense than a violent offense. So the only thing I can think of, well, if they bring back the federal parole, at least this will give the inmates hopes of getting out. Because November 1st, 1987, they abolished the federal parole. Now the inmate have to spend like 85% of their time.
Mm-hmm.
So what he was talking about earlier, you have a lot of people that just have marijuana. A lot of people don't have anything on their record. But if they have 5 grams of crack cocaine, street value $500, they automatically go to federal prison. And if you have more than that, you usually get 15 years to life. So I decided to go up to Capitol Hill and talk to Congressman Danny Davis from Chicago. So he introduced the bill to bring back the federal parole, where the inmates can look forward to getting out one day. And it never passed. So I've been on that journey for basically 30 years now.
Now, this
Well,
is very
Garry,
interesting. Go ahead, Keone.
Garry, what you're just talking about kind of brings us back to the root question, right? What is prison for? Is it for punishment, rehabilitation, punishment and rehabilitation? Because what a lot of people like you and I are seeing is it's made a lot more for punishment and less for rehabilitation. So if you're not going to do what the prisons were intended to, which is punish and rehabilitate, then like you were saying earlier when they were trying to pass the law to open more treatment centers, then we need to get people more into rehabilitation than into prison, because you're creating this revolving door effect. And then one of the big things, well, let's just talk about that right now, because I have something that talks about after you get out of prison, but I don't want to put the two together because there's a lot. So what explain to people what two things. What's prison supposed to actually do?
Mhm.
And then since we're talking about advocacy, because a lot of people don't understand how do you advocate, they think everything starts with the president, but it doesn't. It starts at a lower level. So kind of walk us through that as well.
Well, I agree. Most everybody think, as a matter of fact, Congress have the most power when it comes to that. Congress created the laws, so therefore only Congress can change the laws. And either the president will sign it or either he will veto it. But it starts at the local level, you know. And the reason a lot of people they start complaining about, when I told the inmates, this is what the inmates tell me, said, look, I know I did a crime. I have no problem doing the time. But the fact of the matter is, I shouldn't have gotten this much time for $500 street value worth of drugs when I was sick and I needed to go into a drug treatment center. But see, I know the backstory that a lot of people don't know about why we incarcerate so many people in the United States. And the reason why we incarcerate so many people in the United States, it's all about money. You don't have a clue how many products are made inside the prisons.
Wow.
You don't have a clue.
Give us an idea
I
of what's
mean,
made.
This is why we say it's
okay,
a new form of slave labor.
Hmm.
yeah. A long time ago, probably about 30 years ago, I'm gonna give you an example. In the state of California, they made a product. You may have seen it on the commercials back in the day. I don't know. They had a pair of slacks, pair of jeans, and
Hmm.
the logo was made on the inside but worn on the outside. Those jeans were made on the inside, but they were worn on the outside when you all were buying them. Let me give you another example. You remember back in the day when they had 411, the operator, say sit in state, please.
Hmm.
They abolished those jobs and sent those jobs inside of the prison. So now
What?
when you call 411, or anytime they book you for your trip, your next trip, more than likely you could be talking to an inmate.
Wow.
Yes, the set they had call
That's
centers
before
in
I
there.
left Tallahassee.
Get out of here.
Prior to them
Yep.
doing that, they was making all the furniture that you see in the store, the furniture that you sitting on. inmates are making that. So the government is making so much money. The people in the streets are making so much money because see they can go ahead on and bid on those products.
Mm.
Well, you
Basically, that's why they get so many people non-violent offense. That's why they get on so much time. You know, they can do the job.
it especially ran rampant once you got to the privatization of prison camps. Everybody, and then the thing with society is they don't hide it. They put the clues right in front of you. How many cartoons did you watch where they had Bugs Bunny arrested and then he was making license plates in the prison? Like it's right there in your face.
Mhm.
But what happens is what I was talking about earlier, and Gary can attest to it, is it gets beaten in your head from childhood that everybody in prison is some terrible, violent, sick person that deserves to be in there. And then that makes you have no sympathy for anybody in prison. What do people normally say when you say someone's in prison? Well, they deserved it. Well, they shouldn't have did what they did. It's easy. The biggest line is people when they say it's easy to stay out of prison, and someone said it's quite opposite. It's easy to go to prison. It's actually easy to go to prison. So, Gary, I want to move
Yeah.
to the after effects. So, one of the things advocates will do is talk about, well, the laws when you get out of prison. We know laws are different state to state; it's different than federal. But we talked about in some states where you get out of prison and you're not legally allowed to get a driver's license or an ID in some states. Well, then how's this person supposed to get a job if they can't get identification? So you're not that, and that's where it comes back to. Well, did you rehabilitate this person? Because you rehabilitate them, and they can't get a license. That means they're not getting a job, and where are they going to be back?
Wow.
They're going to be right back in prison.
That's what we call recidivism. You
Yep, there
get
we go.
out, you get out, and they want you to have a job within 90 days. They want you to have somewhere to stay within 90 days, and then when you get with your loved one, your relatives, they get tired of you in 30 days and say you need to get a job. But the people that's getting out of prison, they apply for the job. But the thing is, on the application, it's that one sentence that say, "Hey, you ever been convicted of a felony?"
Mhm.
And 95% of the time, when you fill out that questionnaire, your application is going into the trash can.
That's not
Now,
fair.
don't get me wrong. There are some companies like
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking
some
about, Gary.
trucking
They're
companies. They
they're
might hire inmates and things of that nature. But now there are some restaurants that hire inmates. Red Lobster, you know,
yeah, there are companies that
Lowe's.
will hire people who have been in prison, and that's one of their missions. Now, don't get us wrong, people that are listening. You shouldn't. It should not just be have you ever been convicted of a felony, even though it's private information. Well, no, it's public now, but the crime that you committed should be important. I understand if someone's went to prison for bank fraud, I'm not hiring you as a cashier. That makes sense, right? But
Yeah,
why can't I work at the furniture store, you know, if my crime was, you know, excessive speeding, or something, I'm being ridiculous, but
Exactly.
does it fit the narrative of where you want to be
Exactly.
hired? And, you say and the same people that won't hire these people are the same people that say, you know, these people get out of prison, they just go back. They're not a help on society. Well, you're helping them not be a help on society by not giving them that job so they can go back to legitimizing themselves.
I agree because if you say this is your penalty and they do their time, that should be it. I've done my time. I shouldn't have to get out and do more time out in society. I don't understand that. Either I did it or I didn't. So I
and
I
also
can
I
just
want to bring up something else. I want to bring up something else.
Go ahead.
Mhm.
I want to dive deeper into
Mhm.
what's really going on.
Okay.
Alright.
I want to dive deeper into how minorities were selected. All right, a lot of people saying, well, whites don't, Caucasians don't commit as much crime. They do, because we make up 12.5%, 13% of the population. They make up about 80%, and the rest of it like 13%. You know. other. What they was doing that a lot of people don't know. I say, for instance, Lesette, you white. You could be white this morning, and
Okay.
I'm gonna be black.
All
If
right.
you and I was in a car together, the same car, we friends, we out there selling drugs and stuff, we get caught. The first thing they gonna do, they gonna take Lisette because she's white. They gonna say, well, let me handle. The state gonna say, let me handle this case, because see, we know with the amount of drugs that we have, Lisette, when she go to state court, she's basically get out of on probation. Okay, I'm black. They gonna say, okay, we could take Garry, we could send him to the federal court. We
Hmm.
know we could get 10, 15 years or more. Now, Lisette and I, white and black, we in the car together for the same thing.
Same
But
car.
the fact that she's white, she goes to go to state court where they have parole. The fact that I'm black, I'm gonna get about 5 to 15 years, and I'm gonna go to federal court where they abolish parole. So I'm gonna be doing a lot of time while the set is going out there doing her thing. That's a
Wow.
good example. A lot of people don't know that, but that happens a lot.
That's sad. That's a lot of reform that has got to be, that's got to happen. A lot of reform here. It should not be like that. I know the present administration, that he's changing the policies for parole for like the Haitians and the immigrants and people of that's not in the country and everything. So, not necessarily from the country or but whatever. But a lot of stuff is going on. So we really need some serious reform here.
Well,
And
also people got to realize, don't always press the panic button. Policies aren't laws. Um, they've got to be turned into laws. And like Gary was saying, Congress makes the laws. And the reason why we say it starts at the local level is because everybody on down from your local level up is what puts the pressure on.
mhm,
So who are you voting
there
for
you
mayor?
go.
Who are you voting for sheriff? That's a big one.
There
I
you
remember Judge Joe Brown. We all know Judge Joe Brown. He said the people in the community where he was complaining because the sheriff was racist and the proportionate amount of people being arrested were black and Hispanic. And he said, "What are y'all complaining to me for? I ran. You didn't come out and vote."
there we go.
So now he won, and now you're surprised that the policing is terrible in this area. I ran for sheriff. Y'all didn't vote. So people, that's what I meant by when they always look at the president. Of course, you can do that now because we have an insane person. But that being thrown aside, it starts at your local level. The
There you
change starts at the very community you in, because what happens in Tulsa, Oklahoma, has no bearing to what happens to me where I live in my county.
okay.
So you need to make sure that you're not just paying attention when the presidential election comes around every 4 years, when they talk about midterms. What are you doing with the sheriff? What are you doing with any type of election that goes on in your county, in your city? You should be involved with and know who the players are. Am I wrong, Gary?
That's correct. I mean, you're absolutely correct. And I want to point out one more thing.
Hmm.
I have some good news.
Uh-oh.
Okay, a lot of people
We
like,
love good
well,
news.
when President Barack Obama got in office, he didn't do anything about criminal justice reform. That's incorrect. If you look at the first Sentencing Act of 2010, that ratio I was talking about, 100 to 1 ratio, has dropped
Mhm.
down to 18 to 1 ratio. And when he signed that bill, about 3,000 people got out automatic just that day. So he
Wow.
did something, but a lot of people don't want to give him credit for taking that job, getting the people out. But he did it. But according to the news, you would think that President Barack Obama has never done anything for criminal justice reform, and that's totally wrong.
Well, that's a narrative that's always been spin. I hear black people a lot of times tell me, "Well, he didn't do anything from black people." I said, when you make that statement, it means you have no idea what Barack Obama did for 8 years.
That's
That's what
true.
you're telling me. You're telling me you have no idea because it's 2025. You don't have to go to a library. You can do a simple Google search and find all this information.
Yes.
You do not have to be a detective to find out what Barack Obama did for minorities.
That is so true. And show me the little doll. I love that little doll, little buddy.
Oh, you
Where he
talking about
is?
little buddy?
Yes, Lord. There he is.
Yeah, little buddy. Uh, little
As-
buddy was
Mhm.
created to go out there and fight for criminal justice reform. And I wrote a children's book that included little buddy going out fighting. And one of the things that Mr. Stevenson said, you got to go out and vote. So if you want to carry me into that book and let me tell you about it, just ask me, and I'll let you know how little buddy came about.
And plus one of those the shirt that little buddy has on, you designed those shirts for your advocate for justice. That's really cute.
Uh,
And you have a lot
well,
of other
I have to say my
clothing
wife
attire,
Vicky designed it. You know, I don't have that talent.
where you have a lot of attire that is about your advocate for
Yes.
justice with your logos on. It's very nice. So I think that's
Oh
awesome.
yeah, and I appreciate it. But you know what? Um, People are realizing now that the time you get to be 12 years old, you're already committing crime and things of that nature. We need to start catching our children at least at the age of 1 or 2 years old and start teaching them about, they might don't interpret what you were saying, but if you instill in them and you read to them and tell them about crime and things like that, like Little Buddy did, and the reason why I created Little Buddy, then by the time when they get 12 years old, they'll know not to go out there and get in the car with somebody that's using drugs. They'll know not to go in there and steal. But if you wait till they get about 12, 13 years old, it's almost too late. So we have to start at the beginning. Soon
Wow.
they come out of the womb, we
Mm,
have to,
mm, mm.
we have to instill in them what's right and what's wrong.
Yeah, put
And
that
I was
community
talking to
around them.
Lesette.
Mhm.
Go ahead, Lesette.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was talking to Lesette about. She said, well, "What should we do?" And I said, "You could put my children's book in the schools. Children need to start learning about criminal justice when they get in elementary school. So when they get to be 12, 13 years old, they are astute on what's going on, and they're trying their best not to get in trouble. So we need to start. A lot of people, what children don't understand, make them understand. Teach them in the
I absolutely
community,
agree.
in the school. Teach them.
I agree, because I had mentioned this one time before on a show, how on one of my shows, how that if the policeman and the fireman hadn't come to my school and told me about, somebody's driving up around throughout the city trying to capture and kidnap people, I wouldn't have known. I mean, these little kids don't know. That's why I like Little Buddy, because it's definitely a great tool to put in the school systems, and just to give to your children, and it's a conversation grabber to kids. What is Little Buddy? What is he all about? And you can, and even have role
Okay.
models, people that can raise
Okay.
your children, and even if they don't have a father figure in the home, or even a mother figure, someone that they can look up to, and tell them about criminal justice. I think it's awesome.
Okay. Um, Last year and year before last, this is my first time ever trying to write a criminal justice. I mean, a criminal justice book, just like my first book. And I was telling my wife, I don't know how to speak like a kid. So I'm writing this, children's book, and she was saying, "You write too much. You got to get to the point. Children, they don't have that attention span like everybody else." So this I broke it down for the kids. I wrote the first book called My Dad's Vacation, and mainly in the black community, we know what that means. My dad was incarcerated in the black community. So the reason I wrote that book and broke it down like for a kid, that's the same topic I talk about in our adult book. That's the same topic I talk about. And what happened was how Little Buddy came about was Little John and Little Buddy was in class. The teacher asked Little Buddy, what do your parents do? What do your dad do? And little buddy said, my dad's on vacation. And little Johnny, which was a white kid, and said, no, your dad's a jailbird. So little buddy got confused and went home and told his mother. So they set him down and said, your dad, at the time, little buddy father went to prison. He won't able to interpret what was going on. But little buddy went home and the parents set him down and said, your dad's in prison. And he didn't know what prison was. They said, why does little Johnny call my dad a jailbird? So they broke that down. So little buddy said, what can I do to help my father get out of prison? And so the mother told him, well, you can go out there in the community, you can get people to vote. And once you get people to vote, you can bring the right people in office that agree with your ideas. And I can't give you the rest of what else went on. So I wrote a book, part 2. Okay, this is my dad's vacation. That's part 1. So little buddy did everything that the parents told him to do. And when little buddy got older, and it's called Little Buddy Goes to Washington, little buddy went to Washington as he got older, took people with him, spoke with Congress, and had the bills changed to get his father out of prison. That's
Wow.
what it's about.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I know Clarence said that maybe
That,
the Board of Education, maybe the Board of Education could allow your books to come into school. I think that's, for the children. I
um,
think that is so awesome. I really
um,
appreciate that. I appreciate the work that you've done and that you're doing in criminal justice. So that's all about advocate. That's one side of you advocating for justice, that we got the
yes,
power to do that for ourselves. There's something else that intrigued me about you. You said that you are a cancer and depression survivor. Could you get more into that
yes.
for me?
Okay, around, I guess, when I was like 35 years old, I began, I got sick. I thought it was a virus. I thought it was an infection. Of course, it was an infection. I went to the doctor. He said, well, okay, you have a urinary tract infection. All right. Okay, I thought women had urinary tract infection. I didn't know men had urinary tract infection. What do? I get this medication. Without getting into a long, drawn out thing, what happened to me. And for the next 8 years, I was taking medication, but my condition wasn't getting any better. So when I first walked into the doctor's office, urologist, you look like a big athlete. You don't look like you're sick. You don't have a clue some of the things I have gone through. I don't look like I have gone through. I don't know if that's a gospel song or not. You might need to look that up.
Hey, I know what you're
I don't look like what I have gone through. I really don't look like what I have gone through. So they said I had prostatitis, swollen prostate. Now, during that time, they say you get your prostate checked at 40. I was getting my prostate checked at 35. And so after one infection, it turned into 3 infections a year. Then it took to 5 infections, urinary tract infection. And they still couldn't tell me what was going on. I didn't want to keep on taking antibiotics and pain medication.
Mhm.
I wanted to get to the root of the problem, find out what's going on. What can I do to help myself and stop it? And they kept dismissing me because of my size, how I look. Well, they just kept like, everything will be all right. Sometimes go through this. So when I was in Tallahassee, I went to the urologist. I asked, could I have a second opinion? He got kind of agitated. He said, they could tell you the same thing. So I got a second opinion. And they did tell me the same thing. When I moved to Atlanta, I went to a urologist there. And they said, well, you have real bad urinary tract infection. You need to take this medication. But how long do I have to take it? They said, well, there's nothing wrong with taking medication the rest of your life. I said, no, I can't do that. I need to find out what's the root cause of why I'm sick.
Right.
So I went to Johns Hopkins University. And the doctor asked me, don't we have great doctors in Atlanta? I said, yes, but I have a right to come here to get checked out.
Mhm.
He said, well, I'm looking at your record. I agree with the doctors in Atlanta. You need to take antibiotics the rest of your life. Now, I wasn't going to do that. Then I ran into a friend and said, Gary, you still have a problem with the prostate? I said, yes. He said, why don't you go to the Mayo Clinic? I said, I don't feel like going to Rochester, Minnesota. You know, this is like my fourth doctor I had gone to. I didn't
Wow.
feel like going to Rochester, Minnesota. So they have one in Jacksonville, Florida. So I went to the one in Jacksonville, Florida. That was October 2010.
Okay.
And 2 weeks later, they said, I want to basically look at your prostate. Uh, we want to do a CT scan, see what's going on. I noticed you never had a CT scan. So, okay. So when they did a CT scan, they found two tumors.
Mm.
Then they turned around and said, we need to do a biopsy. So when they did a biopsy, they found out I had prostate cancer. Uh, I wasn't upset. I was relieved, really, to be honest with you. I was relieved because now I know what's going on. Now, since I know what's going on, now I can tackle the problem.
Right.
And I haven't had a urinary tract infection in 14 years.
Wow. What? So that by you knowing what was going on, you could treat it. Whereas before, nobody it just kept kicking it down the road. We don't. It's urinary tract infection. So that's very interesting that you had the mind to advocate for yourself and
Mm,
to find out what's really going on.
this is why life frustrates me. He- Gary's a smart man, and he didn't have to be smart for things not to line up to make sense. No one should have a lifelong urinary tract infection.
Mm, mm, mm.
Like there's obviously something else going on, but what people will do is they just give up and go, "Oh, well," and they take that medication for the rest of their life, and then they have kidney problems and all other things. So, yeah, advocating for yourself, there's a problem, and you can't just have people turn you off. Um, I'm lucky. I'm a veteran. So if I had to go through what Gary went through and I had to keep going, at least it's paid for. But you got a lot of people out here, they'll give up because of you know, the financial toll, and then the worst happens. So I commend you for being able to stay in that fight and know something is wrong with you. And it's crazy that you have to go through that many doctors to get to the root of your problem.
It is crazy.
Yes. Also, you said something about kidneys.
Mhm.
Take a lot of medication.
Mhm.
I'm in the third stage of renal failure. A lot of people didn't know that.
Yeah.
Been in the third stage, and I think I know it came for anti-inflammatory pain medication, but it
Mhm.
also came from a lot of those antibiotics I was taking
Yeah.
for years. So
Because
many
a lot
people
of
that cause
oh,
kidney
sorry.
problems. I do have kidney problems.
Mhm.
Can't look at me and tell because I try to stay in shape and I try to eat right most of the time. Well, let me take that back, half of the time.
Because I know I'd be seeing
But
you
like
in
you
the
said
gym.
earlier,
Well,
Mhm.
this is why
yeah,
I think it's important to not just go see a doctor. I had a doctor, a primary care doctor, but I also had a healthcare specialist who dealt in holistic medicine, and I used the combination. So when I used to have to take, like, my cabinet used to look like CVS, right? Of all the I used to be on 13 different medications. But my holistic person was like, "Listen, if you're gonna take all these medications, you've gotta take these kidney cleansers, you've gotta take these liver cleansers, you've gotta do all of these other things."
Wow.
So, I'm not endorsing cannabis to anybody, but it's crazy. I started doing cannabis when I retired at 40, and amazingly, the cannabis took care of 9 of my medications.
Wow.
So I went from 40 to 47. I went from 13 different medications to now 3.
Mm, mm, mm,
But
mm.
and those are all for, like, depression and stuff like that. But all of those other medications, gone.
That's interesting. That's
Yeah, they
amazing.
will pill you to death, and a lot of people don't know this. Lisette, you've been to, like, Europe, like London, England, or any of those places?
No, never.
In a lot of foreign countries, most foreign countries, if you go to England, you will not see billboards, you will not see commercials for
Hmm.
lawyers in medicine.
You won't?
No, you won't. It's illegal.
Really?
Yeah, you can't just advertise medicine every step of the way in a commercial. Same thing with
Hmm.
lawyers. That's why this country leads the world in, people on medications and lawsuits, because those are two things that you'll see. Go watch a TV show. Every other commercial is a medication commercial, or have you been in an accident? Have you fallen down at work? Have you
Hmm.
done this? Have you done that? Count how many of those commercials you see next time you're watching something. Just count.
That's
And
interesting.
even if you're looking at YouTube, let's say you're looking at YouTube and not watching um, traditional TV,
Hmm.
you're gonna see a lot of that. I turned on YouTube this morning when I was watching it. I saw in the first commercial, I had to switch to my paid account because out of the first 6 commercials, 3 of them are for medicine.
Wow. That's
So
amazing.
yeah, so you've gotta watch it when people are just throwing medicine at you to fix the problem, because a lot of medicine is a temporary fix, or, what do they say? It's curing the symptoms, but not the problem,
You know,
you know?
I don't even like to take a lot of medicine. I just don't. I don't like to take it, and I know they want me to take it, but
Mhm,
I just don't like the idea of taking a lot of medicine. And I know we was talking about, the prostate cancer, but I remember even recently, like I've had a surgery, but if I had not checked my body out,
mhm.
I would not have known that I had a problem. I mean, sometimes we need to advocate for ourselves by looking at our body. What is different? Something off here? Something a little bit
Well,
different?
yeah, you should do that every time you take a shower, you look at the body, but it's that fear, and it's a lot with men. They always say this, women go to the doctor all year long, and men go when something's falling off. That's when a lot of men will go to the doctor once the problem is severe. But, because, you think you can do that. But there's a difference between taking medication that you really need to take, and there's a difference between taking medication that just solves the symptom, not the problem. I generally will never take a Tylenol when I have a headache unless it's a severe headache and I have to do something, because it's like, "Wait, why do I have stop? Why do I have this headache? Have I
Right.
not eaten? Is my body telling me you need to sit your butt down somewhere and rest?"
There
Like,
we go.
so you go and you go ahead and take the Tylenol. It gets rid of the headache, but the reason why you had the headache is still there.
That's
And
right.
then you go to work and you pass out
There you go.
because you didn't treat the problem, you treat the symptom. And again, that's why when you go to other countries, like I was using England as an example when you left, Gary, I was telling Lisette, you go to England, you don't see billboards and commercials for medicines and lawsuits. That's why it's the most in this country. In a lot of countries, you can't promote medications like that. Every commercial you see, every other commercial when you watch TV is a medication, or did you fall down at work? Have you been in a car accident? And they pill you to death here.
And the side effects.
Yeah, they pill you to death here. And you've got to know, out of all these medicines you're trying to give me, what do I actually need, and what can I not put in my body that I really don't have to put in my body. That's the important thing, because there are some people that do have to take certain medications, but you got to know these things. Um, and you have to do like Gary and many others is, if you don't feel like you're getting the right
Hmm.
answers or the right care, you need to keep on going.
Wow.
If I see a
True.
doctor and the issue's not resolved after the second visit, my next question is, what specialist can you send me to?
Exactly. Don't keep experimenting on me.
I want to go back what Keanu was talking about, and I'm gonna tell you the real reason why they have all those commercials. It might get me in trouble, but hey, so be it. I got God on my side, so I fight with him. And the pharmaceutical company are billion-dollar companies. And if you're not sick, they can't make any money. They're not trying to find, a cure. They introduce medication for you to stay on medication the rest of your life. And they keep making money. The only way they can't make money off you is you're dead. They don't want you dead like some people say, well, they want us dead. No, they don't. They want you sick and continue to be sick to get the medication. And one medication take for a long period of time, start messing with your kidneys, start messing with your liver, start doing all, then take another medication for that, and take another medication for that. Next thing you know, like you said earlier, 14 pills. So the best thing you could do to fight is eat right, exercise, and sleep. And keep your immune system strong. The doctor told me, I said, what happened? I said, okay, I don't have cancer anymore. How do I keep cancer from coming back? He said, well, it looked like you work out. I said, yeah. He said, keep working out, making sure you eat green leafy vegetables, and try to stay stress-free. It's just that.
Stress-free.
Oh, that poor
It's not as easy.
Clarence.
I mean, it's simple as what I said, but it's not as easy.
It's not easy, Gary. Poor Clarence. He's married to Lesette. I don't know if that stress level ever gonna go down. he might be in
Whatever.
he might be in
Whatever.
trouble.
Whatever.
That old man might be in trouble.
I try to give it to him every day. Don't you love it, baby? Don't
Well,
you
we're
love
not. Whoa, Lesette. It ain't that kind of show now. It ain't that kind of show. All right, let's move it on. Um, but and Gary, what you just said is, a lot of comedians have talked about this of how politicians and people were shocked. They were shocked that people didn't flood the internet with sympathy when that CEO got murdered. Again, we don't advocate for violence. We don't want anybody out here getting murdered, but they couldn't understand why the American public wasn't sympathetic to the billionaire pharmaceutical CEO, being
Yeah.
lambasted is because you're not sympathetic when my healthcare is gone. You're not sympathetic
exactly.
when I can't get the medication that I actually need. That's funny. You can't get the medication that you actually need, but you can get a bunch of medication you don't. And I'm gonna tell you a funny one, Gary. Lisette just know this. I tore 2 tendons in my knee. Okay. At the hospital, they gave me ibuprofen. I couldn't sleep. I was in pain all night. And so I went to the doctor. I said, I said, let me ask you a question. Now, I'm black, if no one has seen me, and my doctor's Caucasian, coolest guy in the world. And I said, can I ask you a question? Why? I said, why when people like me come in here with our bodies sawed in half, you want to give me ibuprofen? But if Becky comes in here with the pinky hurt, she gets Vicodin, Oxycontin, Percocet. And he goes, you know what? I'm actually writing a paper on that because I talk to my colleagues all the time, and I'm not going to call them racist, but it's this built-in thing that where they assume that people who look like you are going to get addicted to these drugs. And I tell them all the time, not to be funny, I'm being stereotypical, but he said in the funny way he said, he goes, black folk want to uh, drink liquor and smoke weed. We're the ones who get addicted to pills. So stop trying not giving people the correct medicine that they
Right.
need. Because I'm like, what am I supposed to
Um,
do with these 2 ibuprofens with 2 torn tendons in my knee? You might as well have given me Skittles.
I know that hurt.
Oh yeah, I had to go upstairs and ask my friend for her Percocets, and then I was able to sleep.
Oh
But
my.
you know what happened once the pain was gone? I didn't take any more Percocet. Stop having a fear that something when I actually need it, I'm gonna be addicted to it,
Mhm.
especially if I have no
okay, let me
addictive
speak
stuff
on
down
that.
in my records. Go ahead.
Okay, let me speak on that. And I don't mean to get back into the criminal justice thing. Let me speak on it. Okay, when crack and powder cocaine was on the loose and stuff, they were sending everybody to prison,
Mhm,
and they was getting rid of drug treatment center.
mhm.
Opioid is on the loose. Methamphetamine, Percocet,
Yep,
all that stuff.
yep.
Most black people don't, take that. I'm not saying we don't, because I had to have Percocet from time to time, because
Mhm.
I heard a lot. But now they're preaching drug treatment centers because the whites are on the one that's not the only one. I don't like to make a blanket statement, but whites are strung out on opioids and going out selling, doing everything. They don't want to put them in prison. They want to put them in drug treatment centers. They're sick. But when crack and cocaine was on the rise, they were putting us in prison and take away the drug treatment center.
Mm.
I hate to get there. I hate to go there, but that's
Well,
just me.
you don't have to hate to
I
go
don't
there,
like to
Gary,
sound like a
because
racist. If I
well,
sound like a racist, it, correct me if I'm wrong.
well,
I have no I have no. I don't have a problem apologizing if I'm wrong.
well,
What I just
Gary,
told you, that's correct.
you don't have to
Go ahead.
apologize because the statistics line up with what you're saying. I mean, it's stereotypical, but it's a well-known fact. If you looked at the statistics, you have to look at access, right? Why were ethnic groups, not just blacks, but ethnic group able to access crack more easily because that's what was pushed to our neighborhoods. I don't have a friend at the country club who's a doctor who can write me a prescription for Vicodin every time I want some. So it's access to certain drugs. If crack was pushed in Beverly Hills, then it would be a Beverly Hills problem, but it wasn't, right? Percocet and all the other
Right.
Oxycontin and all of those. So it's not a racial thing based on this race is addicted to this. It's what do you have access to in your community? Now, when people of ethnic groups were able to get in certain communities where had they have access to different things, because you got to remember, look at meth. It's becoming a problem for us now. That didn't used to be
Terrible.
our problem.
It's terrible to see people
Yeah,
on the streets looking like zombies. That's
yeah.
creepy.
That was not our problem. Percocets were not our problem. We didn't have access to it. Opioids, we didn't have access to it. Heroin at first, we didn't have access to it. So it's what do you have access to in your community? And when you break it up by race, people will always want to do the reverse race card, but we go back to sentencing. I can take crack and affect me and get more jail time than someone who can steal an entire company's pension of millions of dollars
Yeah.
and bankrupt everyday citizens by taking their retirement and pension, and they can get less time in jail than me.
That's sad.
Yeah.
So why is it though? Again, until recently, what did most of those people in those positions look like? So
Right.
again, what do you have access to? 20 years ago, I would never be able to get hired at prominent companies and be in that position to do those kind of things. And we're not saying that black people never commit white collar crimes, but you do what you have access to. So Gary, no, you don't sound racist. You're just pointing out that that's the way the lines were drawn. Look at the war on drugs. They put a graph up on how much money was spent in the war on drugs fighting all the drugs that were out there starting in the 80s all the way up I think it's like 2015 when they did the report. Can you guess what the government had spent the most money on what drug fighting?
What?
No, just take a guess. The most money on the war on drugs. If you had to pick a drug, can you guess what the most amount of money was spent campaigning on and trying to stop?
Crack?
No, that was given to us. They didn't want to stop that.
That's right. Valium?
Marijuana.
Methamphetamine,
Lana.
opioid.
Marijuana. Of all the drugs,
I'm serious.
that's what they spent the most money on.
That's crazy. It should have been something else, not that. Um,
But that's the way that's what Gary's talking about. It's the racial lines. Why do you think marijuana is legal in most western and northern states? And what's the states that's slowly getting around to it? The South. It's looked at differently. So in this country, you have excessive access to things that you don't need. You have excessive access to cigarettes. You have excessive access to liquor. But if there's any a healthier alternative, it's a slow turnaround because of what he just said.
I agree with
If
you 100% on that.
Mhm.
But let me tell you something else. If you go to federal prison, I don't know about the state,
Mhm.
marijuana, if you get out and marijuana is legal, and you want to open up your own dispensary, the fact that you went to prison, they would not allow you to open up the marijuana dispensary. And that's what you went to prison for. But now marijuana is legal, but you can't go out there and get your own dispensary and sell marijuana.
Wow.
Yeah, it's the continued punishment. Let's say I'm gonna leave you with this, and then I'm gonna let you wrap up. On Pedro's show that I talked about on the count, we interviewed a guy called Mike Mikowski. Mike Mikowski used to be, uh, he didn't have a college degree, but he was a millionaire. He dealt in real estate and some other businesses. And to not tell his whole story because it's a long story, but he ended up in federal prison for something that he did that he was ignorant to the law of. It wasn't anything malicious, right? So he serves his federal prison time. He gets out. This company wants to hire him in a CEO position and give him a six-figure job, which who wouldn't want to get out of prison and get offered a six-figure job, right?
Right.
But when you're a felon in the landscape that he was, you have to get approved for these positions. And he kept getting disapproved. So when he had to go to court, the government's side to the judge, and he showed us the transcript, which is ridiculous. The judge said, okay, he's done all this, he's met all these markers, these company wants to hire them. Why are you blocking this? And on the transcript in federal court, their response was, we don't think he deserves it.
Really?
That was their response. The judge went ballistic and threw it out. But Mike didn't even take the job. He said, "You know what? I'm switching. I'm picking a new avenue of life." And now he's an advocate. Now he works nonprofits. So he could have went back to working six-figure jobs and doing that. But he said, "You know what? That's how it works. We don't think you deserve it."
Wow. Ain't that something? That's interesting. That's sad. That is so sad. I see Clarence said also over here in the chat. He said some people are losing their health insurance. So
He's leaning a little low when he said some. Oh, you might as well change that to a hell of a lot.
it's
But
a
Gary,
lot.
I'm gonna turn it over to Lisette. She's gonna wrap up, but I would love, I have your contact information. I would love to get you actually on the count so we can dive more because that's the show where we really dive into prison talk and reform and regulations and all of those things. So I'd love to invite you to that. We'll turn it over to you, Lisette. It was a great episode, Gary. Sorry I had to dip out for a second, but love talking about these type of things to help educate people. And I think we hit a lot of things. We talked about health, we talked about prison, we talked about um, prescriptions and medications, reform. We covered a lot of areas. So it was a very good episode today.
Thank you, Kiani. Thank you for joining us. I mean, even in the comment sections, just like Clarence was saying, you got a chance to advocate for yourself when it comes down to voting for someone that will help you keep your health insurance. So it's really back on an individual. Am I right, Gary?
I agree with you 100%. I understand that some people are not literate, and we understand that. But we have a lot of people that are literate that can go out there and vote, but they want people like me to help out. You can go out there and do the same thing I'm doing. I don't mind. I have no problem helping you out if you're illiterate and don't know what to do. But if you know what to do, you need to go out there and vote.
That's good.
Then they got some votes coming up in Kingston after a while.
Yes, we do.
Advocate
Yes,
for
we do.
yourself.
This is good because the day has come and gone when we're gonna make somebody else speak for us. Our voice
Yes.
is powerful, and as an individual, we're powerful, and when you band together, you're even more powerful. So we need to let our voice be made known and advocate for ourselves and our health and our uh, in justice, because you sometimes we think, well, that's Lily Mae's son that got arrested, but you don't know when it's gonna come nigh you. You don't know what's gonna come nigh your dwelling, what's gonna be your family member. that's in jail, unlawful. I mean, unrightfully so in jail. Or,
Oh, no, 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 Lisette. That would never be my kids because I raised them right.
yeah, right. No,
Tell that to the officer that pulls them over for nothing and then makes something out of nothing. You raised them right, but they still went.
there you go. There you go. It's important that we vote. We vote and that we advocate for ourselves. And look at, just like we was talking about your body. Look at your body. I mean, if I hadn't noticed something, sometimes something is on your body that's where you can't really see it. You don't really notice it, and it's a blessing of the Lord that you absolutely notice something and you can catch it
You
before it. You know,
you can't see it, but hopefully if you showering and you running them hands all over
and
the place,
and
you can feel it.
it may not be a lump. It may not even be a bump.
Huh?
It might be something that you have to see. But if it's in a terrible area or a place, not necessarily a terrible area, but it's in a hidden area that you can't really always look under and see, then you're gonna be in a bad way. You're gonna be in a bad way. But I thank God, I thank God, that I saw what I need to see, y'all. I got my glasses here. I saw what I need to see. And I took care of the matter in time. Gary, do you have some last words?
Um, uh, although we didn't get a chance to talk about depression,
Yeah, go ahead.
um,
Say something about depression.
uh, yes, let me give you a spiel on that. In 1970, I felt kind of sad all the time growing up. I didn't know what was going on. Then when I got a little older, I realized what was going on. My mother took me to the doctor for asthma, but I went in the back room and I told her I can accompany myself back to the back. I didn't want my grandmother going in the room with me anymore. I was in 11th grade. I went back there. I told the doctor what was going on. He said he wanted to send me to a psychiatrist. I just shut down, refused to go. But in 1999, things got a lot terrible, uh, a lot of stress, and that brought on more and more depression. But in our society, speaking about depression, that's sort of like, that's a no-no. People think you're crazy, uh, uh, things of that nature. But that's another show because I don't want to rush this subject
Yeah.
because I think a
That's
lot of
another show.
people can
We'll
get
have you
healed
all again, Gary.
and get out of depression.
We're gonna
And
bring you back.
for the people that's listening, you don't necessarily have to go to a psychiatrist all the time just because you're feeling depressed. You can go to a best friend, a friend that will not reveal, your secrets. And sometimes you might need to cry a little bit, and that helps out a lot. But in the black community, that's a no-no. We don't want to talk about it. But I'm glad they're talking about it now. And I really want to give you a full story on why I came out. But I know we're short of time.
Don't worry, Gary. We'll have you back on, or I'll have you on the mental health show that we have. Because on Kieran Productions, we have a lot of different shows. So definitely will fill you in on that. I'll kind of give you a rundown of what each one's does. And if you want to be on another one to talk about those specific areas, as well as come back here, we can gladly do that because there'll be episodes dedicated to that topic, and you'll have plenty of time to get your thoughts out and share stories and motivation for people to help them get through it. Because I totally understand it as a person who suffers from PTSD, night terrors, insomnia, and depression and anxiety. I get it. All right.
Oh yes, yeah. That's why I didn't want to rush it.
I'm right here with you. Thank you, Gary. Thank you,
Yeah.
Lisette.
All
We
right.
will
Thank
see
you so
you
much.
guys
I love you, Gary
next Monday.
and
Love you
Kim.
too.
Thank you for coming. And don't forget to advocate for you.
Little buddy.
Hi, little buddy.